Hello and welcome. My name is Liliana Hernandez. I am one of the supervisors here at Luminarias Institute, and I will be going over the intake forms and process. I highly suggest that you take out a pen and a notepad and just start writing down or taking notes on some of the information that will be provided on this video and other videos you watch, as your supervisors will have questions for you as well as a survey sent to you shortly after watching these videos. So we will get started. Intake forms and the process. So here we have, we're going to be going over these administrative pieces in regards to how we here at Luminarias does the intake process. So we will review the email that consists of the referral and the consent form. We will go over what the insurance card looks like, and if it's missing, how we go about requesting it. We'll discuss a little bit about prepping the space for the call that we will be making to set up the first appointment, considering HIPAA, of course. Making the initial phone call and what I like to call the 3 goals that we want to make sure we hit as we make that phone call. Making note of all interactions or incidents on our face sheet. And then finally, replying to the newly assigned client email to confirm that an appointment was made on what date or if there continues to be no contact. And then we'll slightly go over the initial portion of our checklist in regards to the new client portion. So here you will have the email that is sent to you normally by Rosie, if not by Jessica, that a client has been assigned to you. It'll give you some information in regards to the client, the school they're coming from, possibly their name, their age, how, what grade they're in, as well as if the insurance form has been collected, or if you can go ahead and request that on your end, since possibly the parent told us they'd get it back to us later. It'll note some availabilities of what time the parent prefers you to call to make this appointment. And if the parent is either bilingual, monolingual, English or Spanish speaking. And we go ahead and look at the referral. So as it's attached, you open up and you notice that the referral comes with the majority of this information. The parent normally fills it out at the school, heads and signs it, and it gets emailed over by the school. So obviously some demographics, name, phone numbers, addresses, etc., parent's name, the emergency contact information, and I want us to make a note and an asterisk around that. If for some reason we have been trying to get a hold of the parent, we've called, we've texted, possibly sent them an email trying to get a hold of them, and they're not responding, please use that emergency contact to go ahead and see if we can make contact with that parent. Then you'll notice that there's some insurance information on here. Again, it might be filled out. We just might need a copy of the card, and we'll talk about how we go ahead and request that. So for John here, the parent has checked off a couple of items on his referral form that are the areas of concern. In this case, some possible social awkwardness or isolation, anger outbursts or irritability, complaints of feeling unwell, difficulty concentrating, and some anxiety and constant worries. Now, anything that says and or, it's a note to sort of make for ourselves that as we are talking to the parent, we are ruling out either or, being inclusive of both. The second part on this form is page 2, the consent form that the parent again has filled out and signed if in person at the school. One of the things to really make note of here, one, we want to make sure that's the same information, obviously, but also as it says here, the school site person referring, it's good to be able to make a note of that, as we will be including them in some of our correspondence or communication when it comes to the client. And if there's anything we might either be requesting from the school, such as information, is there an IEP? Is there any additional information in regards to some behaviors at school? So we want to make note of who the person specifically referring them is. They might give us additional information and also do consultations in the future. So here, one of the important other things to notice is that the student's availability for the sessions is important to make a note of. We really try to match your availability with the student's availability for their sessions. So there's a difference between what is available for the clients and then possibly what's on the email that says the parent prefers you to give them a call Monday through Friday after 5 p.m. because they're home from work. That's great. That's the time we're trying to get a hold of a parent. These are minors. We really want to try to include the parent into the therapy and definitely the assessment portion of this. But we also want to make note that it doesn't necessarily have to match the ongoing student availability. So even though you might meet with the parent after 5 Monday to Friday, or during a phone call she says she's available on the weekend, he or she, then we can go ahead and schedule the intake for those timeframes where they will both be present, if not maybe the other parent as well, and then confirm with the parent if the child will still be available on Tuesdays at 4, for example, for their ongoing sessions. Here we have the insurance cards, and we just wanted to point out in this part that sometimes the parents will give us these two, what we call BIC cards, benefit insurance, identification cards. And what we really want is to get the ones that have the actual insurance information, whether it's the HealthNet card or the LA Care card or the Anthem Blue card. It's what we're really looking for. So sometimes the email will let us know that we're still waiting for that. And they could just text it to you. We upload it into our Dropbox, and then we delete it from where they sent it via text or email. So here we're going to take a closer look at the referral form, consent, some insurance information, and the demographics portion of this. So just so that we can see this a little bit closer, we see that the client's name, age, grade are on here, his preferred language, generation, we have here, and sometimes it's not noted on the first referral form, but we do want to make sure that we're asking this as we're meeting with our families. You know, is the client first generation here? Were they, etc.? The client's birth date, and cell phones are important as well. So here we made of note, and sometimes this isn't always what happens. The client has a cell phone, and then there's the guardian's cell phone. We go back and forth between guardian, parent, mom, dad, etc. Same person that we're going to be contacting. So we notice here that there's two phone numbers, one for the client and one for the guardian. And this is good to keep as a mental note as we continue to communicate with our families. We see here that the client has an email, their city, where they're living, and who the client is living with, mom and dad, relationship, mother, father, and their preferred language. So this is always good to make sure that we're looking at this form right before we're jumping into a phone call, because we might sort of need to adjust some of what we're saying or how we're saying it, or sometimes just mentally switch over from our English brain to our Spanish brain to be able to have communication and not get caught off guard right up front when we're trying to make a good impression on this parent. So for this parent, mom, Spanish speaking, they have emails for both mom and dad here. And once again, important to note that there is an aunt here with a phone number that if mom and dad were not answering to a couple of our calls, that we would definitely reach out to that number and give them a call so that we can try to get a hold of the parents. This part ensures that they're noting themselves what Medi-Cal information or what Medi-Cal cards they have or providers. So they've noted the information. This is great to have if it's not filled out, definitely getting it from them on that phone call, and or making sure that we get a copy of the card. Noting the areas of concern. This is good to be able to review obviously before the phone call, because we do want to be able to inquire a little bit about what these concerns are and what they look like before we jump on to the full assessment appointment. And this is important to note because this is where we give the opportunity to the parent to maybe air out some information that they don't necessarily want to share in front of the child, possibly. And that we might also want to just ask some clarifying questions. The other notation here was anxiety and constant worries, as well as John's parents have recently separated and are worried about John's behavior, basically. So it's good to know as we're having a conversation with the parent that answers the phone, and also inquiring about how the second parent might be part of the services? Do we reach out to that person? Can we have their information? What's a better time to be able to reach out? Because it'd be great to be able to hear both sides of the parents' concerns and worries so that we don't exclude one. We go into the consent form here, again, information noting that the person referring, John in this case, is Mr. Cruz from NASA. Again, good to note so that we continue having open communication with this person as we're treating John. The next portion of this is same information. And again, the piece to note here is that the parent is actually saying, not during school time, please. So we want to make sure that we look at the availability, any access or comments that they've listed here so that we respect those. And then obviously noting that the student's availability is either Monday or Tuesdays, possibly at 4 p.m. and on. So the initial call, here we have what is a perfect case scenario, right? If everything goes well, this is what it would look like. But obviously also knowing that it can take on many different avenues. And this is just one way to be able to explore it. And if anything comes up for you as we're going through this role play, make a note of it. You know, we often, our brain goes into like, but what if? Make a note of it. Talk to your supervisor about it and see how that can be addressed. So we'll start here with part number one. We're doing this in the tele mental health platform. And, you know, we just want to review a couple of pieces in regards to what that means and privacy, correct? So we'll talk about HIPAA and noting that since this is a federal law that helps protect individuals' information, we want to make sure that when we're communicating or we're sitting somewhere where it might be private or there might be people passing by and whatnot, that we ensure that we're not sharing confidential information unintentionally. So if we're on the phone, if we're texting, if we're emailing or consulting, that we are ensuring that we're not sharing like a client's full name. Even if we pick up the phone after we're seeing a client, that we are trying to always ensure that we're protecting their protected health information, names, last names, phone numbers, date of birth, etc. So the initial phone call will sound maybe possibly a little like this. So we call the parent and we ask to speak to the parent. Now it's important to know and to maybe possibly rehearse how you're going to introduce yourself. The way I do it is I simply say, hi, this is Liliana Hernandez, one of the therapists at Luminarias that's associated or works with NASA Elementary, where your child goes to school. I'm looking for the parent of, in this case, John. The caregiver might respond, this is that person. So whether you do it right up front or you do it in between, you want to make sure that we note that we're the assigned therapist. So we're going to ask them, do you have a few minutes, maybe 10 or 15, to go over some information? If they say that this is not a convenient time, we'll try to schedule something that works best for you. You let them know that you'll text them to confirm something, to just be expecting your call from this number once again. So if the parent says, sure, this is a good time, we go on and we let them know that we're here to accomplish hopefully 3 things. The first one being that we want to let them know that our sessions are going to be virtually, and is that something they knew and understood and are still in agreement with. We want to say that right up front because we'd hate to get through this whole information setting up an appointment, and then at the end of it, we let them know it's going to be virtual and they're like, oh no, wait a minute, I thought this was in person. So we want to make sure that we note that right up front. So the caregiver's in agreement, and maybe can possibly ask you, when will it resume in person? So as of right now, we would let them know that we would be doing it virtually, but that the goal is to possibly be online January 2023. And as of right now, that's kind of what we know. It might be earlier, but you know, we're taking things slowly. So the second thing here I'm going to ask this person is that I want to schedule with them the first appointment for you and your child. I read that on the referral you signed that, and this is information we might have from that referral. And I would say something like, the referral stated that you're available Saturdays at 9 prefer. Is that still a good time for you? So this person agrees, yes, Saturday 9 a.m. is good. The parent might even ask again, even though you stated it, do I need to attend? And will this be next Saturday, this Saturday or the following Saturday? So we want to make sure that we remind them that the first few sessions, we would need the parent there so we can go over some information, some consents, gather some information in regards to the concerns that were noted on the referral. And that moving forward, we would be seeing John on a weekly basis. And per the referral, it stated that Tuesdays at 4 was a good time. Is that still something that is working out for them? So the parent might agree to this and says, okay, everything sounds good. And you might let them know, or you thank them obviously for their time, letting them know that you would be sending them a text and an email with either the Zoom or the Google link that you will be using to meet at the end of this call. Then the last thing is to be able to go over the information that is on the referral or that area of concerns. And you ask, is that okay? So the caregiver might say, sure, no problem. And you let them know that you just need to verify a couple of information. Sometimes things move fast in people's lives, sometimes faster than fast. So we want to confirm that the addresses are still the same. Phone numbers or emails are still the same. Caregivers, you noted that there's a notation on the referral that states that there has been a recent separation. You might want to ask, will the other parent be involved? Can I call the other parent to also get some information from them? They might have some information to share there that would be good to know in regards to the parent is now living in another country, or there's actually a restraining order, etc. So this would be a really good time to be able to air out some of that information. And then you move on to go over the areas of concern on the referral. So we can start with, on the referral, you checked off that you've noticed some anxiety. Please let me know what that looks like. Where have you noticed it? What does John's anxiety look like? So the caregiver might give you some information. You might want to go through a couple of the areas of concern on the referral that you feel might give us a little bit of information in regards to what might be going on with John, and then how to kind of proceed in the assessment appointment in regards to getting a little bit more information. So I might also ask about bullying. The question is, does he bully or is he being bullied, right? Do we know who he's being bullied by? How often has this happened? How is that being done? Is it in-person intimidation? Is it online? Has it gotten physical? Are rumors being spread, etc.? Like, we want to really clarify, what does this bullying look like? Let's say, for example, it says here that, he also spends a lot of time on his phone. We might want to ask, when did this start? How long does he stay on the phone for? Does she happen to know who he's on the phone with? Is it his parent, his other parent? Is it some friends? Is it social media? Is it like phone games, etc.? So we might go through a couple of these, and then we might ask, is there any additional information you would like me to know before our meeting on Saturday? And this is important because there might be some notations there that the person gave us and then says, oh yes, before I hang up, I also wanted to let you know that just recently this and this and this happened, and it's good to have that information up front. So we might thank them for their time and letting them know that we'll be working with them. But that before we hang up, you might want to give them a spiel like this, and it's really good to be able to go watch our next video on Dr. Acuna if you haven't already, and being able to give them this type of reassurance. So I'll say something like, in the past, I've worked with parents who have often had a couple of questions or concerns about the process of therapy, or possibly expectations. So is there anything else on their mind or that they're concerned about that maybe possibly would make them miss the appointment on Saturday? And parents might mention, actually, I do. This is a concern I've had. I'm a little bit worried about this. They might give you a story of knowing about a neighbor that somebody began some visits and then their kids were taken away. So we're able to sort of hold them, give them the space to be able to share those concerns and let them know that since, we weren't there with those family members and we really don't know what happened, that during our meetings, we can definitely talk about what the services are that we provide, that they're to support, to help with some of these behaviors and concerns that the parent has mentioned, and that our goal is always to ensure safety for our children and for our clients, so that even though we don't know exactly all the parameters of what happened with the neighbor, that if any concerns continue to arise, and if that's something that would happen to her children, to please let us know. That might help them be put at ease a little bit. So we might validate praise with that response and clarify, wrap up the call. So at this point, I want you all to go ahead and think of what other concerns or worries might arise for you as you've seen this, or what other concerns might arise from parents, or maybe that you've heard in the past that you've had experience with, or colleagues, and make a notation and definitely share this in group supervision with your supervisor. So the wrap up part of the call, I'll basically sum it all up for them, right? So thank you so much. I'll see you on Saturday, 9 a.m. online. I'll be texting you and emailing you the Zoom link shortly. Please feel free to give me a call beforehand if there's any concerns. And also, this is my phone number, and I recommend that you save it on your end, as we will be communicating often. So once again, I recommend watching Dr. Cunha and Dr. Pinedo's videos for additional information. So that would be the roll call part of it. And again, knowing that there could be a lot of different ways that this can go about. This is just one of them. So here, I just want to make note that as we are talking to the parent this way, we want to make sure that we have something to write on, so that we're either confirming or correcting some of the information that's been given to us on this form. So basically here, I'll be making a note that this was in regards to John, spoke to a mom. She confirmed the email. Maybe there was a typo on it, and I'm correcting it here. They actually did move because there was this parental separation. This is her new address. She knew and understand that it is virtual. The appointment is going to be on Saturday at this time, and the weekly appointments for John are Tuesdays at 4 p.m. And then I'll make notations of what the parent shared, that the symptoms or the areas of concern were. So if she noted the anxiety looks like he's biting his nails, he cries a lot for no reason, he whines when he's going to school, he's easily started. This is where I start making some notes of that, because this information is going to be really helpful to insert it into the assessment. The bullying part, and then, I will make a note that mom added being worried about losing her kids to an agency due to a neighbor having had this experience. Just anything that stands out for me as we made this connection. Here we have our face sheet, and here's where we basically go and note at any time the information that is happening before we actually make the first appointment for the assessment. So the phone call is just the phone call to set up the assessment, though we're gathering information. So we want to make sure that the face sheet is following this chronological sequence that lets the reader know this is what I've done and to get to the appointment. So for example, I received this new referral for John. It had the referral form and the consent, and the client was referred by Mr. Cruz, right? This is one of the places that we noted in. We'll talk a little bit more about why and how this sheet sort of falls into play for a lot of information that we go to, instead of going to read note by note by note for information that might be pertinent to the case. So here I also noted that the therapist called the parent. I left a voicemail and I texted. The parent returned the call later on around 6 p.m. We reviewed the referral information and made the intake appointment for this date via Zoom. And I reminded the parent to please make sure they had the insurance card for that, if that was missing, for example. The parent agreed. So other possible scenarios, right? The mom might call to cancel that first appointment and reschedule it. We go back to the face sheet and we update. On this date, mother called, cancel session due to whatever reason she gave, and rescheduled it for this time and this date. Then the therapist met for the initial assessment. They showed up on January 7th in this example. And the mother at this point shared that they actually had an open DCFS case. So I'm making note here of who the social worker's name and the contact information, because they will most likely be wanting to get a hold of us at some point. And we'll talk about the release of information later on in regards to that. So here we're making a list. I want you to make a list right now, anything that pops into your head of any what if scenarios would go on this face sheet, because there are different ways to look at this. So I want us to mainly focus on the fact that in this face sheet, since it's one of the areas we go to sort of know where the client is, where they started, how easy or difficult it was to get a hold of them and set up the first appointment, maybe possibly some concerns with the family in regards to DCFS being involved, or mother gave us father's contact information and that he is going to be part of the services here, his phone number, his availability, etc. And this is also used, and if you think about it in this way, is since you are only with Luminarias for a short time, there are some clients that end up starting with you and being transferred over to the oncoming clinician as you're leaving. So the face sheet is one of the first pages that they go and they read to sort of catch up with some information on the case. We also update this form if during your work with them, they've moved, we update an address. If the social worker changed from Terry to someone else, we update that information so that we're always making sure that we have the most updated information, contact information in one page instead of trying to track it down through different progress notes that we might have obtained this information at. This also works in regards to any clients that you continue to call 3, 4, 5 times, and they haven't called, they haven't rescheduled, they haven't called back, they haven't scheduled, or maybe you set up 2 assessment appointments and they keep rescheduling, and there's just this ongoing trying to get a hold of them. It's just a way to be able to document all the attempts that you have made. So you want to make sure that you're updating your face sheet on a constant basis. As soon as you have information that you're like, it would be good for somebody to have this in case, I wanted to take a long vacation tomorrow, or I'm transferring over this case. This is the catch-all of that. We can't stress this enough. Sometimes you'll get emails from us that as you relay some information, and the response is, thank you so much for the information. Did you update the face sheet? So just kind of keep it in mind. This face sheet is for a change of therapist, change of diagnosis, DCFS involvement, medications, if they're on any medication, maybe they started with medication before they came with you, this would be a place to note it. We ended up referring them to a psychiatrist and they got on medication. Psychotropic medication is a good thing to note here. Now, if they're on any other medications, definitely just so we know if there's any other ailments that we want to make sure that we're aware of as we're transferring cases or supervising the case. School counselors that we are in contact with, and any other relevant information that we might deem possible. If you're not sure and you're trying to figure out, does it go on the face sheet, talk to your supervisor. They'll guide you, and then we'll let you know where to add that information. So here's the almost last part of this, right? You go to the email where you received the referral, you hit reply all, and you let us know that you've spoken to the caregiver, you've set up the initial appointment, it's for this time, this date, and possibly that the ongoing individual sessions will be at this time and this date. Note that information on the email. It's really helpful. Then there's this part, every chart, every case that you get assigned has one of these checklists in there. And you go in, you add your name, the client's name, and then you start to tick off things that you've sort of went through. And it's a way to just kind of keep us on track of where we are with the initial phase of having gotten this client assigned. And you and your supervisor can definitely talk a little bit more about if we're stuck anywhere, the psychosocial part, there's some information that you don't know how to notate, the CTP or the client treatment plan, we're stuck, we don't know how to write the goal. Instead of just sort of like trying to get to it later, just make a note to yourself and talk to your supervisor about wording or how to go about writing a goal so that we can sort of check everything off, letting us know that this chart is completed in this point in time in regards to a new assignment. Here we have that part that I talked about in regards to release of information, or what we call our ROIs. So in this example, if we remember, John's mother mentioned that they had an open case with DCFS. And we gathered that contact information and we obtained a verbal consent, and we'll also obtain a signature on our release of information form, which you'll see here shortly, so that we're able to exchange information with this agency and not to violate confidentiality. Our release of information authorizes to receive and release information. There's going to be a future training on this in regards to how to go about it, but here's a brief overview with the information that we have. So this is what our ROI looks like, and I will look at it this way. So we add the client's name, birth date, their address, who's authorizing. The parent is authorizing Luminarias to disclose information to the Department of Children and Family Services. We try to check off entire record, and we let them know, you know, what is it that we're going to be using it for. If it's easier to just check off other in regards to assisting client care coordination, which just basically means we're able to receive information from them, why they opened a case, why they're going to keep it open, why it's turned into a court case instead of a voluntary open case, or right before they go into it turning into a court case, the services that the department is providing, possibly what can we do to assist, right? The parent might need more collaterals in regards to parenting and learn about proper ways of giving consequences, or help her understand what neglect is, or continuing to put their children in harm's way by continuing to go back to a perpetrator that they've asked to leave the home, etc. It's just a way to be able to document that we've gotten permission from our family to go ahead and talk to the workers so that we can coordinate client care. Here we have the part of the purpose for the disclosure. Obviously, if the client or the parent is requesting, that's what we're checking off, their signature. And this is normally valid for a year. We can have it re-signed in a year if the case is still open with us. So here we have, we'll go back really quick. Yes. So just a couple of first session tips. Obviously, equip your space. Know where you're going to be having these sessions, ensuring that everything you need is in front of you on your computer, the referral form, possibly a script of how you're going to discuss confidentiality, and the assessment. You have it open on your computer, and you're making notes if needed on your computer or on something written, so that you're taking down the information that's needed. Obviously, your notebook, your computer, pen, maybe your cafecito, your tecito, whatever it is, water that's keeping you hydrated during this time. You will be doing a lot of talking. So we want to balance the part of building rapport with the client, ensuring that when we're making notes, we're also not losing that contact, that eye contact. We're gathering enough information to ensure that we know sort of possibly the diagnosis. Is there any concerns that are coming up? To keep an ear out for any information that might need us to discuss a safety plan, right? Sometimes, you know, when we ask about suicidal ideation, when we ask about any thoughts of self-harm, if there's a yes to that, then being able to talk about when it's happened, is it current? Do they have a plan? The parent is in front of us. Did they know about this? How does the parent ensure safety, etc.? So what I do want us to do is, since you all should have access to the resource folder in the Dropbox, is to go ahead and go there. So I want you to make a note now to look at the safety crisis plan in the LII resources folder. So that way, you know visually what it looks like, what it is that it asks, save it onto your Dropbox so that if you ever do need to use it in the moment, we're not sort of, trying to figure out what it is or where to find it, etc. Go ahead and take a look at that now, review it, bring it up to your supervisor if this, then that kind of scenarios. Definitely being able to um, just know what it is. It's a good idea to have before any, especially your first session. And then in regards to writing your initial note, we want to make sure that we're writing it right away. There is a video on documentation and note writing, so we can definitely take a look at that. But also you want to make sure that you write it right away so that I think our first couple of notes are the easiest because there is a little bit of a template to it. Your supervisor might already have a starter note, and you can ask them for any tips or that starter note sort of template, because it's just easier to get it done instead of trying to figure it out. It's almost already done for you. So definitely ask us, your supervisors, for a starter note if we haven't already provided one to you. So from there, we will just go on to making sure that there's notations of any questions or comments. You will receive a survey in regards to this video shortly, and we want you to fill that out, send it back as soon as possible. But we encourage that any and all questions that you do have to please review with your supervisor. Feel free to review this video as well. If there's something that was confusing or you wanted to sort of go into a little bit more, please bring it up to your supervisor. We are more than happy to help. And honestly, I'd rather discuss the intake process 5, 10, 15 times with us, maybe every single time we get a brand new client, so that it's just done comfortably for yourself and it's done well for you and that you feel happy with the results that you're providing. So again, thank you so much and welcome once again. And we'll be seeing you soon.